Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host Andrew, and joining me once again is Mr. Joe. How you doing, bud?
Hey man, having a good time. Glad to be back at it tonight.
Indeed, it was a great week for Atlanta. I am so excited, except for a certain umpire who I will rant a little bit about later, because good God, that guy sucks. I know, no shortage of them, right?
Yeah.
Just for our audience to know, Jason is off tonight. The guy decided to go down and see the Phillies game tonight instead of joining us, and has already gotten to witness Aaron Nola giving up a home run and Bryce Harper scoring an inside the park home run. So it's a wild night in Philadelphia. What else is new?
Par for the course in there.
Yeah,
Par for the
right.
course in Philly.
Well, the way that outfield's not quite as quirky as San Francisco, which we'll also get to later, but it's quirky enough that weird things happen when it's hitting the right spot out there. So, it is what it is. We saw that last year in the playoffs, actually, to my chagrin. So, Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight I'm drinking. It's from Lost Canyon Cocktail Cannon. It's their Bat Bar. It's passion fruit style drink. It's from Branson, Missouri.
Huh?
Really neat can with
I
the
like
bat
that
hanging
can.
upside down on it.
I like that.
Buddy of mine went there for a trip in July and had some home, and I'm like, tried it once, and I'm like, I'm gonna take another one of these.
Yeah.
It's excellent. It's very good.
Awesome. All right. So for me tonight, from Big Oyster Brewery, I'm drinking a tea time. It's a tea and lemonade shandy. So basically, an alcoholic version of an Arnold Palmer. I love the can art too, with the wedge getting ready to hit the ball. Love that. Pretty tasty too, honestly. Because let's be real, who hasn't either taken like a Mike's Hard Lemonade and a twisted tea to make an already alcoholic version? And I think there's already a spiked Arnold Palmer out there anyway, but honestly, this is better. That spiked Arnold Palmer is just so sweet, way too sweet.
Yeah.
All right, so let's roll into it tonight. Before I start ranting and raving like a lunatic, we're going to start some happier news. We're going to start with the Little League Classic tonight. It's played between the Nationals and the Phillies at good old historic Bowman Field, Williamsport. This is the 6th annual Little League Classic. Of course, there was no game during 2020, obviously. Historic Bowman Field is normally the home of the Williamsport Crosscutters. That's part of the Collegiate MLB Draft League. The ballpark opened up back in 1926, but was renovated prior to the inaugural Little League Classic back in 2017 because they needed a stadium, obviously, that would meet MLB standards. Thus, you don't want to have major leaguers with a 385 center field or whatever it used to be. I know it used to be a very short field. That was one of the big things they fixed. So the 20 teams that made the Little League World Series and their family members that were already in Williamsport, they were there in the stands to watch the game. Also, some Williamsport area residents were also given tickets as well. This was the second appearance for the Phillies, actually, the first one for the Nationals. Groups of Little League players met each club when they landed in Williamsport at the airport. Then a handful of players from both teams rode the bus back to the Little League World Series complex with the kids, where they could either watch the game that was going on, they could head over to the Grove, which is a little area where they could hang out with the other kids, play wiffle ball, cornhole, video games, ping pong, things like that. And, of course, the big attraction, Joe, grabbing some cardboard and sliding down LeMade Hill. The players that I know participated from the Nats were C.J. Abrams, Jeter Downs, and Josiah Gray. I don't know if anybody did from the Phillies. I didn't see anything about that. One of my favorite things that we got to see in that game, Joe, were those custom bats. There were some great ones. Bryson Stott had the custom number 2 pencil bat. That was brilliant. Bryce Harper had the custom Fanatic bat, because Harper is all in on the Fanatic. I mean, I don't think there has ever been a player in Philadelphia who has more embraced the Philly Fanatic than Bryce Harper. Alec Boehm had a blue bat featuring a series of Liberty Bells that were inscribed with the phrase, "I love this place," in reference to his "I bleeping hate this place." How things have turned for him. I loved that. Joey Meneses of the Nationals, he had a blue crayon design. Another one of the Phillies players, I didn't catch who it was, they had a maroon crayon design. So there's a bunch of like custom cleats and things like that some of the players wore as well. So that was pretty freaking sweet to see, I thought. The Nationals did end up winning this game 4-3. Trevor Williams had a great start for the Nationals. 6 innings, didn't allow a run, and only 2 hits, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. Can't argue with those results. Phillies did have a chance to rally late, but they were not able to finish the rally off. So before we roll, I'll segue into the Phillies in a minute, Joe. But, we've talked about this before. MLB does the special events really well, and yesterday's game was absolutely no exception. You could tell the players were having a blast. They love meeting the kids. You could tell the kid, whenever they pan over the kids in the stadium, the kids were just in awe of the game. I know quite a few of them walked away with autographs from some of their favorite players, and just a great production put on by MLB in this one.
Yeah, like you said, they seem to nail these special games pretty well. They've got it down to a science. They cross every T, they dot every I, and it's a beautiful production. It's fun seeing them interact with the kids. The cardboard slide is hilarious. To watch them show that, and you love that the guys just get into it. Really get into it, enjoy it. You start seeing highlights from when they were in Little League, some of them, playing in the World Series, and then getting to play in Williamsport again. It's really neat. They continue to knock these games out of the park.
Yeah, I really wish I would have been good enough to be one of the kids who could participate in that, but sadly that was never in the cards for me. I was never good enough for that. Probably not too many people surprised who have actually seen me pitch. We did actually have a team from Pennsylvania make it into the Little League World Series this year. Media, they were actually just eliminated yesterday, I believe, or was that earlier today? No, it was
earlier today, I think.
Was it earlier today?
I think.
Yeah. So they were eliminated by, I believe, Rhode Island. So unfortunately, the team from Media is not there anymore, but great run by those guys. I know the Phillies players that were there were really hyping the Media guys up, and that was really cool to see as well. So, hey, great run for those kids. They did better than I ever did. More power to them. And, it's really frustrating, Joe. You look at these kids, they throw these 40 to 60 mile an hour fastballs. They show what the MLB equivalent is, and these kids are popping like 120. I'm like, oh, good God. I know that it's never going to hold like that as they get older, but just imagine if it would. No, thank you.
No, thanks, man. No, thanks.
It's like watching Major League Baseball players trying to hit Jenny Finch fastballs back when she was playing. Oh, my God. First of all, MLB players trying to hit softball, period, is just hilarious because the angles are all wrong for what they're used to. And then, they think it's only 67, 70 miles an hour. We got no, you don't got this. Forget about it.
Yeah.
All right. So it was otherwise, though, it was a rather forgettable week for the Phillies. Pretty rough. They split the road series in Toronto, which I thought was really good. That was a tough series for them, especially on the road. They lost game 1, 2-1, but the bats came alive in game 2. That was a 9-4 victory. But Joe, here's the one that absolutely should not have happened, especially for a team fighting for a wild card spot. Dropping 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. They lost game 1, 8-7. Game 2 was a great win. Their offense exploded 12-3. And I think that was pretty close until late. And I think it was mostly in the 8th inning that they just exploded. I think it was 4-3 until then. And then everything fell apart in the Nats all at once. And then, of course, they lost the Little League World Series Classic. So, Jason's not here. He was, like I said, he's at the game tonight, and he's got a lot of stuff going on at work like you do. So he didn't send us notes, but I know from the comments from him and Ron in the fantasy chat and our DDAB chat, to say Jason was less than enthused about the Phillies' performance last week might be the understatement of the season so far.
Yeah, this is unacceptable. It's patently unacceptable. I mean, more on this later, but you have a lot of other teams in that wild card and the NL Central race playing top level competition. This is the week. This is the week you have to cash in on it. It's patently unacceptable for Philly to put out an effort like this. It's crap.
Yeah. I was honestly, Joe, I was shocked at their performance last week. I was definitely expecting quite a bit more out of the Phillies last week. I know, when we were talking about the week coming up last week, we both thought the Phillies were going to make some moves and things were going to look pretty good for them. And boy, that really blew up in their face.
Yeah, it's just disappointing. I mean, as obviously Jason keeps us and Ron keep us in the loop, but being in the area, you still tacitly follow them a little bit, and it's just no. This is a garbage performance by the Phillies this week.
And let's remember, coming into games tonight, they're only 2.5 up on the top spot in the wild card. I mean, there's a lot of space for the wild card teams to move. They're playing San Francisco right now. They're only a half game ahead of the Giants right now. And then you got the Cubbies in the last spot. And then right behind the Cubbies, you got the Reds, the Marlins, and the Diamondbacks, who are all 1 game out. Everybody else is 6 games plus. And I think at this point, San Diego might surprise us and make a run before falling short as usual. But I think we can call the Mets, Nats, Pirates, Cardinals, and Rockies done. I think we could stick a fork in all of them. You know, when the race is this close, you can't blow these opportunities.
No.
Just very poor by the Phillies. And in a 5-game week, when you have extra rest, and I understand they were coming off that 17-game hell stretch, which should not happen at all, period, end of discussion. But you just can't do that. Just can't do it. All right, so Joe, let's move on. We haven't had some bring out the good for a little while. Let's bring out some good, man.
Yeah, so Liam Hendriks, who we've talked a ton about, obviously, big fans of his as a group, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He and his wife, Christy, are collaborating with none other than DJ Pauly D for a tailgate event on September the 15th before the game there. And it's to benefit Be the Match, which is a organization that's for tissue donating, organ donation, those type of things, bone marrow transplants, that type of stuff, primarily. And so, to benefit an organization like this, I have a former coworker from years ago who took part in this when he was at Temple and was a bone marrow transplant donor, and it was, still something he thinks about every day and talks about every year when he gets close to around the time. And it's any way people can make a difference, it's fantastic to see, and to see somebody who's so greatly impacted by leukemia with Hendriks and lymphoma in general and all those things. To see him sort of make an effort to do something special, it's great. So hats off to Liam and his wife, Christy. And even though I'm not a huge Pauly D fan, good job, Pauly D. Good work.
Yeah, that's pretty freaking sweet. And yeah, Liam Hendriks is always going to be, I think, always going to be a favorite of the 3 of us in the show. How can you not love the guy? I mean, he's a great pitcher. He's a great teammate. And just what he has gone through, what he has fought back from, just absolutely commendable. Absolutely commendable.
Yeah, he's just a great human. It's just really fun to see his passion for the game, his passion for life, and to see him wanting to make a difference every single day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bring out the good stories with him, and there's a reason for that. He's just a great person.
Yeah. Has he won the Clemente Award yet?
I don't know, but he should.
Yeah.
I mean, doing all of this while you're down and out and injured, I mean, and still caring enough to do this is great stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's roll into fantasy. Boy, that didn't go the way I was hoping last week at all. I was holding a big lead over you for most of the week, and then as my gut was telling me, the weekend just fell apart on me. I think it was like 18-7, and it ended up being 13-12. So I still did pull out the win, but boy, that was by the skin of my teeth. And there's my dad popping on another week without Jason. What a slacker. Yeah, like I said, he decided to go to the Phillies game tonight instead. What a terrible idea. And, of course, Ron's team kept it close all weekend, as has been the story all season for Ron. It fell apart in the weekend. Jason took that one 17-8. So looking at the standings rolling into the last couple weeks here before we hit our playoffs, Jason has a 10.5 game lead over me. And you're 32.5 out. I think we could probably say you're effectively out of the running for the division title, or the regular season title at least. And Ron's at 99. The guess was Jason was guessing around 111, 115 is where he could sink Ron to. The original over-under, when I said like 120, that might still be in play. With Ron's performance the last week. So we'll have to see about that. Big week this week, Joe. I've got Jason this week, and if I am going to stop him from going wire to wire, I really need my freaking team to finally show up across the board, not just the offense. Because even in a 4-team league at this point in the year, the pitching prospects and the free agent pool are not good.
Yeah, I mean, this was a weird week. It just looked like I had no shot in it at all. And then yesterday afternoon, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, my pitching was just fell apart.
Most of my guys,
a couple offensive too.
Yeah, most of my guys just underperformed pretty much all week. It was pretty tough to look at and tough to watch, honestly.
Yeah, that's been my Achilles heel all year, and I knew it was a risk. I didn't take a ton of pitchers early. I took more middle and late pitchers, but drafted heavily on offense, and that has paid out pretty well for most of the year. I think, though, probably next year, looking back, should probably grab one of the aces a little quicker. I did have McClanahan, but gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, say la vie, what can you do? All right, so we're gonna roll into the title story tonight of No Angel, you really do just suck. Angel Hernandez, everybody's least favorite ump to see behind home plate. No questions asked. Maybe Laz Diaz, because boy, Laz put up a real awful scorecard yesterday as well. But Angel Hernandez has a much longer established history of sucking than Laz Diaz does. He once again lost his racial discrimination lawsuit against MLB last Tuesday. The federal appeals court refused to reinstate his case. This is the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. They upheld a 2021 district court decision that granted MLB a summary judgment that said, no, Angel, MLB is not discriminating against you. So Hernandez, he was born in Cuba, hired by baseball back in 93. He sued in 2017, alleging discrimination against him because he had not been assigned to the World Series since 2005 and had been passed over for promotion to crew chief. The 11-page decision said, quote, Hernandez has failed to establish a statistically significant disparity between the promotion rates of white and minority umpires. MLB has provided persuasive expert evidence demonstrating that during the years at issue, the difference in crew chief promotion rates between white and minority umpires was not statistically significant. Hernandez offers no explanation as to why MLB's statistical evidence is unreliable. Hernandez claimed that then MLB executive Joe Torre, who made key decisions over umpires, held animosity towards Hernandez, dating to Torre's time as the New York Yankees manager. Quote, Hernandez has failed to show that the criteria Torre used in making crew chief promotion decisions caused the existing disparity between white and minority crew chiefs. Hernandez has made no showing that Torre harbors a bias against racial minorities. At the time of the writing, his lawyer, Nicholas Gregg, had not yet commented on whether he will ask either his two options, either ask the full New York-based Second Circuit to rehear the case or take a long shot to the U.S. Supreme Court to review it. Okay, first of all, before I go on, can I just say, if he wastes the time of the freaking Supreme Court with this, I hope they laugh him out of the courthouse so hard he doesn't want to show his face in public again, because there is absolutely no reason for that. All right, anyway. Now, I will admit MLB has been somewhat slow to integrate among umpires. Kerwin Daly became the first black crew chief. That didn't happen until 2020. Alfonso Marquez became the first Hispanic crew chief who was born outside the U.S., also in 2020. That said, Richie Garcia was born in Florida, but he was Hispanic. He became the first Hispanic crew chief back in 1985. So it's not like it's never happened. My dad once again makes an excellent point here. Narcissistic incompetence always want to blame someone else. Beautifully said. So, Joe, Hernandez has had much controversy surrounding him on the field many times. And it doesn't matter whether he's the home plate umpire or whether he's the field umpire. Let's look back at 2018 ALDS Game 3, Red Sox versus Yankees. He badly missed 3 calls at first base, all of which were overturned by video review. And it wasn't like he was favoring one side over the other. He just straight up blew 3 calls. He was like Don Denkinger, except Don didn't have instant replay to bail his ass out. Or what's the guy who blew the perfect game?
Joe West. No.
Yeah, Joe West.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Ron just dropped in. How you doing, Ron? Hope you feel better soon, bud. I know you have been a little under the weather lately. So perumpscorecard.com. We use them a lot because they make great graphs. They keep great statistics. And as anybody who watches us regularly knows, we're junkies for statistics. Since opening day 2021, I wanted to just go with a smaller window because, one, I don't know how far back their data goes. And two, I feel like being that this is probably a good time for us to review. I could go back farther, but it really didn't get any better or worse. Since opening day 2021, his accuracy rate has been 93.1%. That is in the 26th percentile of all umpires. Expected accuracy is at 93.4%, 46th percentile. Accuracy above expected, 0.35% below expected. That is among the 29th percentile. His consistency has been around 93%, which is among the 19th percentile for all umpires. His favor of a half a run of favor per game at around the 33rd percentile. Leverage of 0.13 runs of impact per call, 72nd percentile. So basically what that means is he screws over both teams. He doesn't tend to favor one way or the other. I randomly pulled 3 of his scorecards from 21, 22, and 1 from yesterday. The game from 2021, April 6th, 2021, Astros were the home team, Angels were away. Astros won 4-2. His accuracy in that game was 86%. The season average for all umps, 94%. The overall favor was a quarter run for Anaheim, but let's look at that deeper. It was actually negative 0.61 for Houston, negative 0.36 for Anaheim. His consistency score was 92%. The outside zone accuracy was 86. The inside zone accuracy was 87. That is horrible. And because I like to rub people's nose in it sometimes, here's the actual scorecard so we can look at what the let's take a look at that. You know, that red sort of hexagon thing, that's what his zone was, whereas the black rectangle is what the actual zone's supposed to be. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Then we'll go last year, the infamous Brewers-Phillies game that got Schwarber ejected in the 9th inning when he had had enough of Angels' horrid, inconsistent calls all game, April 24th, 22. Brewers ended up winning this game 1-0. The overall accuracy in this game, 88%. Favored points plus 0.77 runs for Milwaukee, but again, both teams were negative. Negative 0.99 for Philly, negative 0.22 for Milwaukee. Consistency score of 88%, ball accuracy 94%, strike accuracy of 77%. 77. I, of course, Joe, pulled that one up too. Because of course I did. Look at that. That looks like Bob Ross's painting palette, not a strike zone. Now, I brought this up last year. The number 1 down there in the lower left-hand corner, that was the pitch to Schwarber. That's not an egregious miss. That's close enough that you should probably consider trying to throw a bat at it to stay alive for another pitch. The number 2 was the one to Segura that was literally a foot off the plate that somehow was a strike. Still trying to figure out how that one was a strike. Then you have yesterday. The utter garbage that he was calling during the Giants-Braves game. Giants did win that 4-3. The only reason the Braves didn't have a perfect week last week. 93% accuracy. The relative accuracy was negative 0.8% below expected. He did somehow favor Atlanta at plus 0.71. But again, they were both negative. It was negative 0.87 for San Fran, negative 0.16 for Atlanta. Consistency of 91%. Called ball accuracy 98%. That's great. Called strike accuracy of 80%. That's garbage. Let's just look at this one, shall we? I can't wait for him to be gone. Look at this. That amoeba blob. Like, what the hell, dude? None of that's even close. And I know Angel missed some time for some health reasons. He was not let my dad caught into the Bob Ross joke, not a happy little strike zone. Brandon Gaudin, Atlanta Braves announcer. That number one that was marked on that, Joe. Brandon Gaudin said, as Fried fires a strike near the outside corner, because even he knew that was a garbage call. Later in the game, he said, ooh, Angel Hernandez may be getting a little warm back behind home plate as he missed, but missed less egregiously. The Giants booth announcer said, I don't know how to describe Angel Hernandez's call, but he punches him out or pulls him out or something. How does this guy still have a job? What the hell? Like
two things. One, I'm not surprised you pick a Braves game to top this off.
That was only because it was I was just going to go with 22 and 21, and then I pulled up the card from yesterday because I didn't realize at first that Angel was behind home plate because I didn't see the game. And then I was like, oh no, we're going all in on this.
Second of all, the only time he was on the World Series was 2005. Guess who won that year? The Chicago White Sox. Explains some things, doesn't it?
It really does.
That's
it
all
really does. As Ronnie said, that looks good if you're blind. It reminds me of the organist in the minor league game who, after the umps blew a call, started playing three blind mice, and the home plate umpire threw him out and ordered all the sound system equipment to be shut off for the remainder of the game.
That's ridiculous.
It's, oh my God, man. The fact, if he was a good umpire, he'd have a case. He would have a case. He's not a good umpire. He blows calls every game, whether he's in the field or whether he's behind home plate. Players can't stand him. The pitchers don't know what he's going to call a strike, what he's going to call a ball. Hitters don't know what he's going to call a strike, what he's going to call a ball. Like, how do you protect on two strikes when he's calling pitches a foot out of the zone?
Yeah, him and Laz Diaz are just garbage.
That curveball that Max Fried threw, that Gaudin made that comment. Remember, Max Fried's a lefty. That curveball came from up. I'm sorry, my screen's flipped. From up here to here. It didn't. The break didn't cross anywhere close to the plane, and somehow it was a strike. Like, you can't blame Schwarber for going nuts last year. And what was one of the best, you know what? No, we're going to call it. That was the best ejection of the season last year. And Aaron Boone tried to up it more than a few times last year because Aaron Boone thinks he's Bobby Cox, except he doesn't know how to win ball games.
Right.
But my God, and then, you pull up the videos that people go on TikTok and everything else, and they just straighten together all the missed calls from the game. And it's atrocious. Like I said, the call to Schwarber, a little ticky tacky. It was a miss. Absolutely. But it wasn't a horrid miss like it was to Segura. It's, before you try and allege discrimination, take a good hard look and make sure it's not just because you suck. Because Angel Hernandez, you really do just suck as an umpire. You are consistently one of the worst umps in the league. And the fact that you still have a job highlights the fact that, well, unions are a good thing most of the time and do good things, they also do protect people that really probably shouldn't be protected from keeping a job. Because I'm pretty sure that is the only reason why Angel Hernandez still has a job with MLB. Because as we talked about last year, Joe, they get a 2-inch bubble for that gray zone, which is just insanely large. It should be a half an inch, maybe an inch, but a half an inch should be more appropriate. Do you think we might finally start seeing the inroads of robo-umps coming up now that they're testing it in AAA and they can get a ball strike review done in 15 seconds?
Well, right now what they're doing in AAA is more of a challenge system. It's not necessarily a robo-ump. It's basically you have a quick second to challenge it. They put it up on there like a tennis challenge, like you said last week, and it's either overturned or kept. It's not that difficult. It's not that hard. I'd rather see that than just a robot of some kind calling the game. I'd rather see a challenge system. That would make more sense to me. You still have, you get the ability to in real time just go, look, I don't think that was a strike.
Yeah.
You get so many a game, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't want to take the human element out of it completely.
No, I don't either.
Because that's part of the game.
I think that's the easiest way to mesh the purist with the want for accuracy and technology.
Right. And you give a limited number of challenges. You can't challenge every pitch. I don't know what the system is in minors. I don't know if it's like 5 challenges, but I think that would probably be a good number. I don't think you should be able to challenge 1 an inning. I think that's a little
No, I think, honestly, no more than I would give 2 or 3, and that'd be it.
Okay.
Because you got to encourage them not to use it, and you have to, use it when it's obvious that it was bad.
Right. Either obvious or the calls that really matter.
Right.
Yeah.
And whether you make that so if you're right on it, you don't lose it. Maybe you do it that way too. I don't know. But, they've got to find a way to thread the needle here and make this more enjoyable, because the game should not be decided by Laz Diaz and Angel Hernandez calling pitches that are 5 inches off the plate.
Yeah.
It's just unacceptable.
It is. And when I realized on Friday night that, man, that guy at second base umpire looks awfully familiar. Oh, shit. Sunday's going to suck. And it did. But outside of Sunday, it was a great week for the Braves. They took 2 out of 3 from the Giants. They swept the Yankees. The Yankee scores were 11-3, 5-0, 2-0. Giants were 4-0, 6-5, and then the 3-4 loss. So remember, the sweep of the Yankees came on the heels of taking 3 out of the 4 from the Mets. So in 7 games in 6 days, the Braves outscored the city of New York 58-13. And Joe, I think at this point, we should basically kiss the Yankees' playoff chances goodbye. At this point, they are now 4 games under 500 as their losing streak has continued. They've lost 8 straight. They're 1-9 in the last 10. They are now 9 games back in the wild card. Aaron Boone, after the latest loss, said, "We really need to get hot now." Brilliant.
Look, the Yankees are trash. Like, you can't develop 3 decent players in your entire farm system in over a decade and expect to be competitive. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't buy everything anymore.
This is not.
And even when they were big spenders, they didn't buy everything.
Right.
They bought 2 or 3 key pieces.
Let's remember that 96 team was mostly homegrown talent.
Yep.
Jeter, Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada. Those guys were all homegrown.
Yep.
Pettit.
Yeah.
And, they did bring in a couple guys. Like you pointed out, they brought in Clemens. They brought in Wells. But mostly homegrown. And they really ought to try and work to get back to that. I mean, when the Braves were foundering in the 2010s to like 2018, they were foundering because they were trying to bring guys in and they sent away all their talent. And now Look at the Braves now. It's all homegrown talent with just a couple guys brought in here and there to patch spots. I understand not everybody's going to be able to do that, but
I mean, even when you look at, to take it out of professional sports for a second, when you looked at high school football and stuff like that when we were kids, the best teams were the ones who played together for 5, 6, 7 years. Manheim Central was always so good because those kids were running the same damn offense since they were 7 years old.
Yep.
And they were playing with the same kids that entire time.
Yep. They had a good peewee system and developed it from the bottom up.
Yep. Like, there's something to be said for developing your own talent and developing it in your own way. Yes. The Braves way, the Cubs way, whatever it is. There's something to be said for that.
I wholeheartedly agree. The Power March just continued all week. Arcia hit his 14th homer on Sunday. They now have 7 players at 15 plus. Arcia is going to join that group at some point now that he's at 14. Harris is likely going to join it as well. He's already at 11. Travis d'Arnaud, it's a possibility that he'll get there. He's at 9, but he doesn't get a ton of playing time right now because Murphy's playing very well and is a better defensive catcher, so it makes sense to run Murphy. And Marcelo Ozuna has been in a ridiculous hit streak lately, so they're not pulling Ozuna out right now because, good God, he was so cold to start the year. Now that he's hot, let's keep it going. So d'Arnaud is a possibility as well. So if that would all happen, they'd become the first team to have more than 9 players to have 15-plus home runs. Now, the most recent teams to have 9 were, ironically, all in 2019, the Twins, the Blue Jays, and the Nationals. And if you remember back to those teams could swat. So definitely a possibility. And then fun note, they became the 5th franchise to win 11,000 games. That was pretty cool to note. I'm just glad I'm just glad they're there, and we're not talking about passing 11,000 losses yet. Because as we know with baseball, it's going to happen to everybody eventually. Just takes time. All right, I'm not going to go too much more into the Braves. I think my rant with Angel is good enough to cover quite a few. So, Joe, what do you got for Read the Room this week?
Yeah, a couple things here. So, we've got with the Cubs in particular, you had Marcus Stroman, who went out and tried to play through a hip issue, changed his delivery, changed his mechanics, he made things worse, pitched like crap, lost a bunch of starts. And then goes, oh, yeah, actually my hip was hurting this whole time. And it's just stupid. Like, you're pushing through something you didn't have to push through. And the team made decisions based on your ability. And you weren't delivering right before the trade deadline. They didn't pull another starter out of the market then because they were expecting you to be top 1, top 2 guy. And now you're trying to come back. We were expecting Stroman to pitch Wednesday night against the White Sox, and that didn't happen. But because of some rib cartilage fracture that all of a sudden shows up. Now, no one's saying what caused it. No one really knows, apparently. But it's either a compensation injury or you did something really stupid while you were sitting down relaxing and trying to get better and hurt yourself. It's ridiculous. That decision by him, and the training staff to sort of try to push through that puts the Cubs in quite a bind right now. So players playing through injuries just pisses me off. This isn't the level of the Yankees' incompetence with Rizzo, but this is just dumb. Like, if you're not pitching well, be honest about it. Your team's trying to win. Your team's trying to win and make the playoffs when we weren't sure they were going to do that. And you're a big part of that. And then all of a sudden you just shit the bed for 3 weeks, and then we find out, oh, you were hurt the whole time. And you weren't being smart about it. And now, not that the Cubs don't have pitching, but they were banking on you to pitch a lot more. So players playing through stuff just really grinds it just makes me angry. And the fact that it's one of my own really just frustrating to say the least. So he's one of them, and players in general. So your thoughts on any of that?
On one hand, I absolutely understand trying to do what you can for your team. You don't want to be pulled out. You want to be able to push through. You want to be able to help out. But at some point, you trying to help out when you're clearly not there, it's not helping anybody, and it's going to make it worse in the long run.
It's July and August. It's not September.
Yeah, now is
Or
not
October.
the time.
No, this is the time when you need to be ready to go at the end of August. And now we don't know when you're going to pitching it.
Mm-hmm. Let me put something to you this way from that Atlanta's been dealing with. Jesse Chavez has been hurt since June after he took the line drive to the shin. They were hoping he was going to be ready to go mid-July, early August. He is finally going to be probably ready maybe early to mid-September. Reason being, the initial X-ray just showed the contusion, but there was a lot of swelling, and as you know, when there's swelling, X-rays are going to miss stuff. Well, as the swelling has subsided and as the recovery has been slow, they were finally able to get an MRI that showed a microfracture, which explains why the recovery was taking so long. Thank God Atlanta didn't let Jesse Chavez just go right back out there and try to pitch. He probably would have made that microfracture worse, and we might not even see him again this year, whereas because they stopped, didn't let him do that and said, no, Jesse, you need to wait. You are not progressing quickly enough. Something is wrong. Because of that, they're going to get Jesse Chavez back, who was frankly putting up all-star caliber numbers before he got hurt this year. They're going to have him back for the September-October run when they need him most.
Yeah.
Dylan Lee will be back for Atlanta in September and October when they need him most, because they are not letting the players dictate how their treatments are done. I'm sure there's collaboration. And I'm sure that sometimes the trainers say, let's try and push through this. I think you're going to be okay. But I shared a video last week in the group chat that, one thing that the guy was pointing out is that the Braves are pretty cutting edge when it comes to sports medicine and when it comes to sports sleep medicine. And they have the right blend between the analytics and they have the right blend with the old school. I'm going to go with my gut on this one. And it shows. Atlanta doesn't tend to get a ton of injuries. They've been outside of the pitching. And I don't really put that, with the exception of the Mets and the way they screwed up their big four. I don't really put that on any team most of the time, because you're going to have freak injuries with the pitchers more than any other position. Mike Soroka walking into the clubhouse and re-injuring his Achilles is evidence of that, if you ask me. But you got to take it out of the players' hands. You collaborate with them, you see how they're doing, but just like you pointed out last week with Rizzo, when you have the evidence, you pull the trigger right away. You don't let the player say, no, I'm fine, I'm going to push through it, it'll be okay. You say, no, something's wrong, you're on the bench until we figure out what's wrong, for your own safety.
Right.
Because players cannot be trusted with their own safety. I think we have numerous amounts of evidence from any sport in the world that says you cannot trust players with their own safety, because they will try to do whatever they can for the team first.
Well, it's all about knowing your kids too, and knowing your guys, and knowing something's off. Something's clearly been off, and now we know some things are there, and that could affect a lot of things for him and for the Cubs, because he has an opt-out if he wants to take it.
And that's where continuity is everything. You want it with your pitching, you want it with your coaching staff, you want it with your training staff. Obviously, if there are problems, you need to get rid of people. You don't just keep people that are not performing their jobs adequately because they've been there forever. You still have to make that choice, but continuity is everything, especially for that training staff, because they get to know the players, and when a staff has been together that long, they'll all say, "Did you notice that with that player? Let me look again. That didn't look right. Oh, you're right." And then when you have the whole staff come to the coaching staff, it also makes it easier for the coach to pull the player aside and say, "What's wrong? We noticed something's up."
Yeah. So that's one of those things this week. The other read the room is Pete Alonso. Okay. If anybody in the world buys his bullshit excuse after the game on I think that was Saturday, I've got a bridge to sell you somewhere or a beachfront in Arizona, to quote George Strait. This is ridiculous. The guy, I think it was Mason Wins, I think is his name, from St. Louis, gets his first major league hit after getting called up, and Alonso throws the ball into the stands. Alonso has a history of not getting along with the Cardinals and the Cardinals fans in general. And you mean to tell me that you just forgot what to do? He said, "Oh, they said we were swapping the ball out," and he just does what he always does and throws it up there.
No, he threw it 20 rows up. He didn't just toss it
up. You didn't just
he
throw it
chucked
over the
it
dugout by accident. That's ridiculous. And anyone who believes his crap, he tried to make up for it with a signed bat and some stuff after the next day.
Nice bottle of tequila.
Yeah, and you know what, that might help, but at the same point, like, this is stupid. This is it's the same reason I feel the way I do about fans holding on to souvenir balls that don't mean shit to them. Alonso is garbage for doing this. He's having a fantastic offensive year, and he has found more ways than he should be able to get himself into the spotlight for bad reasons. You have this crap going on. You have the whole, throw it again crap back against the Braves. Like, this is stupid. You're finding more ways to get yourself and your team in the news when they're having an awful year, and you're having an awesome year. It's ridiculous. I don't believe this crap for a second. He's not sorry. He's just sorry he got reamed out online somewhere. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know how any player is ever unaware that a guy's making his major league debut. Like, there's so much pomp and circumstance around that. I don't buy the "I forgot" excuse for a second either, especially not when you chuck it 20 rows up. And the Cardinals bench and everybody were doing the give us the ball thing. And you know what's funny, Joe? There have been numerous rookies who've made their major league debut this year. This guy's the only one who has not gotten his ball when he got the first hit.
Yep.
Or a pitcher getting the ball from their first strikeout. Yeah. I'm not buying it.
No.
Yeah. I to this day I love how much the throw it again just blew up in his face during that series. That was just beautiful. Just beautiful. Especially because every time the left fielder tried to throw it again, he had to try and throw it again in that game because he missed through it 3 times in one play. That was pretty funny. Anyway, just a quick update on Wander Franco. We have a little bit more news on that. Prosecutor Angel Dario Tejada Fabal of the Dominican Republic stated that the National Agency for Boys, Girls, Adolescents, and Family and Gender Violence Unit, a specialized division that specializes in minor and gender violence, will be leading the investigation into Wander Franco. There have been some reports that there's the possibility of a second minor being involved in a relationship with Franco. This has not yet been picked up by major reporting services, though. I do want that known. And we are not to be considered a major reporting service. We are not the AP. We do not have reporters everywhere. We read AP reports and report them back to y'all. So again, innocent until proven guilty. We are not going to place the burden of innocence or guilt as of this point. We are going to wait for more information. But all I'm going to say, Joe, is this is looking less and less good the more this goes on, especially when you bring in a specialized agency to do the investigation.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I wonder is how long are the Rays going to continue to pay him while he is on the restricted list? Because they are paying him right now, but I wonder if that tune might change in the future.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens, but I think you can really tie him and McClanahan's issues to their fall. It's just been astronomically how far they've fallen off.
It has been, but then again, they started to pick it up over the last week.
Yeah.
6-4 in the last 10, and they had some really good offensive outputs. Let's look at last Wednesday. They had that crazy inside the park home run out at what's San Francisco called now? Oracle Park.
Oracle Park. Yeah.
I've got a rant about that I'm going to save for another time, but I'm getting real sick and tired of corporate names for state. It takes the soul out of the stadium. But anyway, we won't. I'm not going to go into that tonight, but maybe next week I'm going to rant on that a little bit. So last Wednesday, as we well know, Oracle Park is known for a very, very quirky outfield layout and crazy, funny bounces. Rays outfielder Luke Raley was pinch hitting. He blasted a slider into Triple's alley, which is right center, before taking some fortuitous bounces, allowing him to hit the first ever pinch hit inside the park home run in Rays history. It was standing up, I might add, too. Standing up inside the park home run. He ran the bases in 15.3 seconds. That's fast. Second fastest time recorded by StatCast this season. Bobby Witt Jr. did it in 14.3 seconds earlier this year, which is ridiculous if you think about how much distance is being covered in that period of time. So Rally's bullet ricocheted off the brick wall in right center, bounced off the top of the 7-foot outfield wall near center, and then dropped and rolled along the warning track towards left field. It slid past San Francisco's rookie center fielder Wade Meckler. I mean, it was literally like ball guy screech trying like it looked like a Looney Tunes skit, where Wile E. Coyote tries to hit the brakes as he flies over the cliff to go back and chase the Roadrunner. That's kind of what that reminded me of. So it's one of those where you just throw your hands up and say, yeah, screw it, let the guy have it. It's kind of like the NLDS last year when Acuna and Harris just had that terrible misplay off the ball that bounced in right center and kicked all the way over to left. Yeah, there are some ballparks that have those quirky dimensions where that's going to happen. And you know what? More power to the guy. That's really cool. That was a pinch hit inside the park home run. He said after the game, hey, it still counts as a home run, although I would have really preferred to hit it over the fence so I could have just jogged around the bases instead of sprinting.
Yeah.
As a large guy who doesn't like to run long distances, I can certainly appreciate that too, kid. That's terrible, I know. Well, Joe, how about them Cubbies?
Yeah, not what I was hoping for last week. Obviously, we talked about this. When you have a week where the Brewers play the Dodgers and the Rangers, and I might add they got swept by LA and then swept the Rangers. What kind of crazy bullshit is this out of Milwaukee? But anyhow, when you have a Milwaukee playing those two teams and no ground changes, when you're playing the White Sox and the Royals, it's unacceptable. It's just gross. Really. I mean,
I have an answer for that.
Apparently Alexa decided to chime in.
I love that thing.
So, when you look at this week, though, they split 2 with the White Sox in Wrigley. Tuesday night, Luis Robert hit a go-ahead 2-run homer to take the lead, or go-ahead solo shot to take the lead on Tuesday, and they win that game 4-3. Or they lose that game, and then the Cubs come out and they look like they're going to lose on Wednesday. It's 3-1 in the bottom of the 9th. And Christopher Morel hits a walk-off 3-run bomb. And I think he got around the bases in somewhere around 14 seconds. And that was when he was like hopping around going from third to home. Guy had his jersey off before he rounded third base. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was exciting to see it, see the walk-off homer, hear the radio call. And hats off to him because he was looking fastball and he didn't miss when it hung up there. When a breaking ball hung up there, he didn't miss it. Crushed it. And hats off to Michael Fulmer real quick, who I've had my share of misgivings about over the course of this year. Came in the bottom of the eighth, or the top of the eighth, I'm sorry, with the bases loaded and nobody out, and got out of that without giving up a run. So hats off to him for keeping them in that game. Drew Smiley gets the W coming out of the pen on Wednesday night. And then you go and you put out a lineup with a 199 hitter who's not good at playing first base when you lead off the series against the Royals. You put Patrick Wisdom at first base, who's hitting under 200. Streaky as all get out. You have Mike Tauchman out of the lineup and Bellinger in center. All to pinch hit for Patrick Wisdom in the ninth inning with Nick Madrigal with 2 on and 2 out. Are you insane? It's just, there's no excuse for this. There's no excuse for that lineup. There's zero excuse for that. You're playing games against teams that are absolutely garbage. You need to
hold on a sec, Joe. All right. All right. Try and talk again. That was getting really broken up.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that game there. It just really was disappointing. You have Mike Tauchman out of the lineup. You have, again, Wisdom hitting 199, who's subpar at first base. Pitch hitting with Madrigal was just ridiculous. A ground ball hitter in a situation where a ground ball ends the game. Especially with you had Wednesday off, you had Thursday off, I'm sorry, and you had Monday off. You had 3 days off in the last 7 days, and you're giving guys days off in August. I'm sorry, no. There's no reason that a guy with the kind of splits that Mike Tauchman has, hitting 270 from both sides of the plate, is sitting against the Royals. There's no excuse for it. Just when I wanted to give David Ross some credit, no, not happening. So a subpar performance there. And Tyone was vintage Tyone again. Didn't pitch really well. Had to eat up a ton of innings. Gets the loss. Bobby Witt hits a 2-run homer, and that's the story here. The fact that you're trying to come back in the bottom of the ninth against a Royals team, that's not good. It's I said it before when they were making dumb moves in May and June. It's fundamentally unserious and it's ridiculous. If you lose and you put the best lineup out there, fine. It doesn't always go your way. But if you're going to put a subpar lineup out there against a garbage team like the Royals and throw a game, it's ridiculous. It's unacceptable. I'm furious with David Ross right now. Now, thankfully, of course, they have Kyle Hendricks and Justin Steele to finish out the weekend and win both Saturday and Sunday. But, Belly had 2 homers Saturday, which helped Jason's cause. Or was it Ron's cause? Maybe Ron has him now. Anyway,
I've lost track who's gone where in that trade.
Yeah, and Seiya, Amaya, and Hap all had contributions on Sunday to win that game. But the fact that you played the White Sox and the Royals and didn't gain a single game on a team playing the Dodgers and the Rangers is just it makes no sense to me. This was the week to cash in. I don't know, man. I can't do it. I'm trying to give him a ton of credit for the work that he's doing. I'm trying to give the guys a ton of credit for the work that they're putting in. But as a manager, you're fundamentally unserious when you're putting a guy like wisdom in the game at first base, which is not his natural position, and he's hitting like crap.
Yeah, which isn't going to help him hit better.
No. And your pinch hit solution when there's 2 on and 1 out is to pinch hit with Nick Madrigal? Don't get me wrong. I like Nick Madrigal. He's done a lot of great things with the bat lately. But if you're pinch hitting for a guy who's supposed to be your primary source of power, or one of them, with a pure contact hitter, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Makes no sense. Ron has Bellinger now, so it helped Ronnie out. Not that it really helped Ronnie out that much.
Right.
Sorry, Ron. Oh boy. Yeah, definitely for you and Jason, Joe, probably one of the most disappointing weeks that the two of you have had in quite some time. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one thing like when they weren't playing well and they looked like they were on sell path again, and you're not mad, you're disappointed, right? The old you're acting like a dad. You're not mad, you're disappointed.
Right.
I'm furious with the last week. There's no excuse for this. Not at all.
Like that was the prime opportunity to sneak up and steal the NL Central from the Brewers, and yeah, didn't happen. Just wow. I nothing else to say but wow to that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. News out of Washington that just came out earlier today. They've extended both manager Dave Martinez and, well, this was not official yet, but GM Mike Rizzo will be extended as well. 2-year contract extensions with Martinez, and Rizzo will have a 2-year extension soon as well. So Martinez took the team over in 2018. He's gone 378, 455, but he did win a World Series for the team back in 2019. Let me see here. They've already eclipsed the win total from last year. They've seen some of the acquisition prospects make positive strides forward. That includes Josiah Gray, Lane Thomas, Keibert Ruiz, and CJ Abrams. Joe, I think it's a great move. The Nationals are clearly still responding to Martinez. They're making last year was going to be bad. And, when they sold off everything plus the kitchen sink, that it was going to end very, very badly. But, we talked about continuity a couple times tonight, and the problem is not that Dave Martinez is a terrible manager or that Mike Rizzo can't make moves. It's that they just don't have the guys in the majors right now. So I think it's a good call to keep things going. You don't want a major culture shock at this point for the Nationals. You want to roll with what you have, and hopefully the improvement should continue. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the Nationals to try and push for fourth, maybe even an outside shot at third next year, the way they're going at this rate. Because I think the Mets are going to be in the basement next year based on what they've said, how they've played, and what they've done. So I like the move. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you got to reward people who have success. I mean, the fact that they are having any kind of semblance of success this year, the fact they're playing spoiler to a loaded Phillies team week in and week out, it feels like. I mean, it feels like they're they're playing extremely well. They're doing enough to win some games. They have some guys who are standing out. I don't know if they're back in a year or two, but I do think that, like you said, continuity makes a difference, especially when they're responding to it.
Yeah, I don't know if
for the sake of continuity. Continuity for the sake of continuity, like they do in New York with the Yankees, having Aaron Boone in the dugout is not making it better.
Yeah.
Continuity when the guys are responding to you and performing pretty well or decently at least, that makes a difference. So I'm glad they got rewarded for that.
Yeah, I agree. They're actually doing better against the NL East teams this year than they were last year. They're actually at 13-23 at this point because, well, I do want to make the reminder that that sounds bad, but that's because Atlanta's 25-7 against the NL East, and the only other team at 500 is the Mets, who are at 500 right now at 17-17. So, yeah, it's not a great record, but it's a better record than you would have thought. So, I think it's the right move. Keep it going for another 2. I think 2 years is the right length of time. See how things are going, reevaluate, then go from there.
Yeah, I like the idea of a smaller term contract. I don't like the
David Ross style.
The ones where they just don't know. You don't know when their end date is, and they get sort of extended in perpetuity, and it's just not. It's not good for the club. It's not good for the fans. It's not good for anybody. You know, I say it all the time, but the fact that Aaron Boone still has a job is disgusting. If you're a Yankee fan, you should be pissed.
I got my haircut cut earlier tonight. I saw Johnny over at Whiskey and Blade. And first thing Johnny said when I walk in is, "We are not talking about the Yankees Braves series," because, as you know, Johnny's a huge Yankees fan. I'm like, actually, we're going to talk a little bit. I won't grind your nose for it for the whole haircut, but we are going to talk about it a little bit because I had to bring up the fact that Atlanta outscored the city of New York 58-13 in 6 days, because that's just an awesome statistic. But Johnny is in complete agreement that Boone needs to go, Cashman needs to go. The Yankees need to clear house.
Yep.
It's plainly obvious when this is going to be the worst team since 1995 that you need to clear house and start over. And, one thing we were actually talking about, Joe, is that, remember, Derek Jeter was a part owner of the Marlins for a couple of years before he mysteriously just gave it up. And my speculation is that Derek Jeter might get tapped for an executive role, like potentially Brian Cashman's replacement, or even a coaching. Although I don't think Jeter really wants to be a coach. I think he wants to be an executive. So I would not be surprised if he used the Marlins as an opportunity to gain experience. I'm also sure he made money on the deal as well. But I'm sure he used it to gain experience. So when New York came calling, because let's face it, nobody is New York like Derek Jeter.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I think a lot of times you have excellent athletes go on to get into management of some kind or executive positions, a la someone like Michael Jordan, who can't realistically evaluate talent. They can't.
But sometimes it works really well. Look at Joe Sakic and the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
Stanley Cup winners 2 years ago.
Sometimes it works, but a lot of the times it doesn't. Because you're looking for the next you, and that next you doesn't exist.
Right.
Now, do I think Derek Jeter is, on the same, numbers talent as Michael Jordan? No. So there's a little bit of a difference there. But, you're a Michael Jordan or a Magic or something like that. You're looking for the next you, and that doesn't exist. And it's really hard to evaluate talent when you're evaluating it to a standard, which is you. You are the standard.
Yeah.
It's hard to evaluate talent that way.
It's Ted Williams was a terrible baseball manager, great hitter, terrible hitting coach, terrible manager.
Some of it you can't teach.
Well, and that, which book was it? Actually, it might have been Whitey Herzog's book, or I think it was Whitey's book, because Whitey apparently had some experience with Ted Williams as man. I don't remember if he was playing against Ted's teams or if it was when he was with the organization. But, one thing he noted was that Ted Williams was just a god-awful pitching coach because Ted Williams couldn't understand why nobody else had superhuman eyesight and could pick up rotation the way he could. And why couldn't they hit the way he did? So, maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe it won't even happen. Maybe this is pure speculation that'll end up being nothing. But I think as the Yankees continue to fall into a black hole of oblivion, I think it's something we need to keep an eye out, because Boone should absolutely be gone. Cashman should be gone as well, and go from there. To be honest, Joe, I wouldn't be shocked if Boone doesn't make it to the end of the year before the Yankees toss him.
The fact that he had this extra year, I said that till I was blue in the face in the offseason. The fact that he had an extra year was stupid.
Yeah. Backing into the playoffs should not automatically guarantee you a team the next year.
No.
It just shouldn't.
Nope.
I get it. The dude's got a career 585 record as manager of the Yankees. He's had 2 100-win teams, but no rings. And let's remember, what does New York care more about than any other team is the ring. They don't care about your record. They care about the results. And his postseason record is 14-17. Definitely not what New York fans want. All right, so Joe, let's move into the hot list. For me tonight, my hot hitter, I'm gonna go homer pick here and pull Eddie Rosario up. Last week he slashed 524, 583, 1.048. He had 11 hits, 2 doubles, 3 homers, 6 runs scored, 10 RBIs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. Not a bad week.
Not at
all. And then Joe, what do you have for Moneyball?
Yeah, Julio Rodriguez with Seattle, 568, 579, and 833 slug, 21 hits, 4 doubles, 2 homers, 7 runs, 12 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. Guy had himself a monster week.
That's insane. That's utterly unbelievable. All right, moving into the pitchers, Joe. For me, I pulled a Cardinal, actually. Dakota Hudson, 2-0, ERA of 3, whip of 1.08, 12 innings, 10 strikeouts, 4 earned runs, 10 hits, 3 walks, 2 home runs. So maybe not the most dominant showing, but what it showed to me, Joe, is that the dude can get himself into a little trouble and weasel his way out of it, which is a good skill for a pitcher to have.
Yeah, I mean, he's got great potential when he's not warming up after the second batter of the game.
Crazy, right?
Like he did against the Cubs a few weeks back. So,
oh, Wilson. So, Joe, who's your adulting reliever of the week?
Yeah, Raciel Iglesias with Atlanta, 2 for 2 in save opportunities, 3 innings pitched, so he made 3 appearances, 5 strikeouts, no walks, no hits, no runs.
Can't argue that.
Can't get much more perfect than that.
Nah, that's a great week. My hot team, obviously, Atlanta. 6 out of 7 last week. They're 8-2 in the last 10. Although things aren't looking so hot tonight. Last time I checked the scoreboard, but we're not going to talk about that because that's a next week topic. They're up to 80 wins now, leading the NL. They're still 4 games ahead of the Dodgers, who are still hot in their own right, and Atlanta, there's a reason Atlanta and LA are the only 2 teams in the National League with a greater than 99% chance of making the playoffs. Who's your hot team?
Yeah, you can't argue with the Dodgers' success, but I think the Mariners, too, obviously make this list. They were excellent this last week. In the last 10 games, they've been absolutely excellent.
Yeah, 6-game winning streak and 7-3 in the last 10. They're coming on. Yeah. They've it seems like they've shaken out of that funk they were in, and they're going to try and make a push for that wild card or even the division. I think the division might be a stretch, but they are in the last wild card spot right now. Granted, it's tight. Tampa Bay's pretty firmly entrenched in the top spot. They're 5 games up. But Houston is only a half game ahead of the Mariners, and right behind the Mariners, the Blue Jays a half game out. And then you've got the Red Sox at 3. The Angels are probably the only team below that might have a chance, and that's really only if Trout can come back soon enough and be fully healthy. I would think they're 8.5 out and probably not going to be able to make that run, but I don't want to say it's impossible. Yankees, Guardians, Tigers, White Sox, Royals, Athletics, stick a fork in them. They're all done, I think.
Yeah, the Red Sox are the only team that's anywhere within really possible striking distance to me.
I don't
really played really well last week too.
Yeah, I don't really think the Angels are that likely.
No.
All right, before we look at the upcoming week, Joe, you had a topic you wanted to bring up on Gunnar Henderson?
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson went for the cycle yesterday. Almost. All he needed was a single, and he just kept running and got a second double out of the deal. So misses the cycle, and the guys in the dugout are like, "What are you doing? What did you do that for?" So my question to you is, knowing you have the cycle, but knowing you've got a clean double, all you have to do is stop at first base to get the cycle. What do you do?
What's the score in the game?
I don't remember what the score was, but let's say you
That changes my
let's say it's a blowout and you're up big or you're down big.
I'm stopping at first base. If it's a blowout, it doesn't matter. No, I'm stopping and taking that cycle. If it's a close game where the run's going to really matter, what might really matter, no, I'm going to go for the double.
You're up by 2 runs, and Raciel Iglesias is coming in to close the game.
I'm taking that double. I'm taking the double because, good God, the way he's been pitching lately, and honestly for most of the year, I'm not going to trust Iglesias to give us a chance to come back. I mean, let me just pull his numbers up here quick. Iglesias 3-4, but a 2.95 ERA with 24 saves. I mean, that's not bad considering he was out for the first month and a half, 2 months of the year. His numbers have been pretty well in line with his career averages. Looking at this, 12 strikeouts per 9 is actually a point ahead of what he normally runs around 11. So he's actually striking out at a higher rate this year than he normally is. So yeah, if I know Iglesias is coming in, man, I'm taking that double. But if it doesn't matter, no, I'm stopping at first base, taking the cycle.
I couldn't believe that. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know it's what comes first, the team or the individual. And you as a manager, you're like, no, I wanted him to stop, but at the same time, you're thinking, no, dude, we need the double. Oh no, Ron said it was like an 11-2 game. No, you should have stopped at first base. Screw your slugging, screw your OBP. Take the single. You don't see a cycle very often.
I will say this: if I'm playing the Mets, I'm running the double because I'm not going to get the ball anyhow.
There it is, folks. Well said. All right, looking up again at the upcoming week, Atlanta 3 at the Mets, Winans versus Peterson tonight, Elder versus McGill tomorrow, Morton versus Quintana on Wednesday. That's going to be tonight is not going well. We're not going to talk about that, but it's we play for the whole series. You can always drop one and still take the series. And then the weekend series, they head on the road for one more road trip out west. Actually, they might have one more in September, but it'll start with 3 at the Giants, Strider versus Webb on Friday night, Fried versus TBD Saturday, and nobody has been announced by either team for Sunday, which of course is a freaking Sunday night baseball game on ESPN, so God knows how that's going to turn out, probably like garbage. Although, I will say this, because it's out in San Fran, Joe, Sunday night is actually a late afternoon game, so maybe it'll be okay. Who knows? All right, looking at the Cubbies, 3 at the Tigers, Assad versus Faedo, Smiley versus Olson, Tyone versus Skubal, 4 at the Pirates, Steele versus Keller, Hendricks versus Bido, Assad versus TBD, Smiley versus Oviedo. I might skip Keller's start in fantasy this week for that because I don't like that matchup at all. Just like last week, Joe, and we actually mean it this time, Cubbies. You need to do something good this week. We should see 2 out of 3 and 3 out of 4, or at least 2 out of 4, because come on, Tigers are garbage, Pirates are garbage. Get those wins.
Yeah, anything less than a series win and honestly a sweep against the Tigers is unacceptable.
Yeah.
I'll be disappointed. I mean, I think there's enough talent on the Pirates that if they go 3-1, I'm not going to be upset.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and plus, anytime Javi Baez is on the other side of the field, I know you're licking your chops at Angel Hernandez size strike zones because he'll swing at them.
Well, I mean, see, maybe that's why Angel's so bad. He's called too many Javi games. Javi doesn't know the strike zone, and neither does Angel. So maybe there's something there. I don't know.
When Angel retires, can somebody send him the one of my favorite obvious shirts? If Joey Votto didn't swing, it wasn't a strike. Can that please happen?
Yeah. I think it's really neat. We'll see what they do. We know now what the plan is now with Stroman out long term. Smiley's going back to the rotation because he's had some really good bullpen outings. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, they won tonight. But if they don't sweep the Tigers and take 3 of 4 from Pittsburgh, I'm going to be upset next week. So
Yeah.
Buckle up for that.
We'll see what the rant is, whether it's a happy rant or a sad rant as this week goes on. For the Phillies, 3 versus the Giants. This is a huge series. They did win tonight. Nola versus Alexander, Walker versus Harrison, and Harrison is Sanfran's top pitching prospect. This will be his MLB debut, and he is number 36 in ESPN's MLB Top 50 prospects. And then they have Lorenzen versus Cobb, and then they have the Cardinals to come in for a much easier weekend series: Sanchez versus Mikolas, Wheeler versus Hudson, and Nola versus TBD on Sunday. So the Phillies started the week right. They need to beat the Giants. They need to keep that lead they have in the top wild card spot, because the way things are shaking out now, top wild card spot means if you win your series against, right now it would be the Cubs actually. If they would beat the Cubs, then they would have the Braves next. If they drop, I believe they would be if they drop too far, they'll be looking at, if they win out, which would be the NL Central leaders, they would be facing the Dodgers in the second round. I think Philadelphia would probably prefer the Braves, but just because they have the familiarity and the results from last year, which hopefully Atlanta would shift. So Phillies need to hold on to that top spot, I would think. Plus, you don't want to be stuck towards the end of September fighting for that last spot or clinging on to that last spot. You'd rather have a little cushion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Orioles this week, as they are working their way towards the top record in the American League. And boy, have the Orioles looked good lately. They are still, 5 games up on the Rangers for top spot. So good for the Orioles. Keep rolling, guys. This week they have 3 versus the Blue Jays. That's going to be a big series to hold on to that tiebreaker for their division. Now, that said, the Blue Jays in the division, they're 8.5 back, so that shouldn't be a factor, but it's good to have that tiebreaker just in case. You got Rodriguez versus Kikuchi, Flaherty versus Gossman, which that's going to be a great game to watch, and Kremer versus Barrios. And then 3 versus the Rockies, Gibson versus Freeland, Irvin versus Flexen, Bradish versus Black. And, again, they should be taking 2 out of 3, if not sweeping the Rockies. They are awful this year. So it should be a pretty good week for the Orioles. That Blue Jay series is a big one for them, though. All right, Joe, anything else?
One quick thing. I mentioned Christopher Morel's walk-off homer the other night. He was asked after the game or the next day if anyone famous had reached out to him, and he said his grandmother had. So big props to Morel for keeping the focus on his family and considering grandma famous, that's a win for me. So
I love that. I love that a lot. All right, guys. So you can find audio recordings on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you can find podcasts. You can see us live on YouTube, Facebook Live, as well as on Twitter. I do know Twitter was late to start. There was some issue on Twitter's end with that, so my apologies for that. Merchandise is at redbubble.com. Follow us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer, on the Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. All 3 of us are still on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now. We're going to go with Twitter. I'm at PyroLord314, Jason's at JRicker300, Joe's at JoltonJoe35. Guys, we're presented by Dark Arrow Podcast LLC and sponsored by Whiskey and Blade Barbershop and Lidditz. Johnny, you did a great job. Looks so much better than I did last week. Joe noticed that immediately when I hopped online tonight. Guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. We'll see you back here next week.